Hi, it's Ileana at Awakening Cosmic Reality Show, and I have Brad Olsen today with me. Welcome, Brad.
Hi, Ileani. Sorry to get the name right.
That's
Great
okay.
to be here, first time, so we're getting to know each other.
Yeah, well, we've done the show before about Antarctica.
Oh, yeah. And maybe I mispronounced your name then too, but sorry about
It's
that.
okay. It,
Ileana, right?
yeah, Ileana, it's Jewish,
That's a
so
cool name.
yeah, it means answers from God, apparently.
Oh, well, all right. Maybe we'll get some answers from God during this show.
Yeah. So today we're going to be discussing white magic, black magic, cabal, extraterrestrials, and Antarctica, because you have a lot in your book and you've experienced a lot in Antarctica. So it's a pleasure to bring on a researcher who knows about so many topics and has good information about them.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, it was exactly 3 years ago, and I was in Antarctica on a 26-day trip on a sailboat. We talked about it last time. We don't have to go into it too much, but just to give your listeners a little context that seasons are opposite down there. So you really can only travel in the summer months in the Southern Hemisphere, which the travel season is November to early March. And right in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of it, right now, January is perfect time.
Yeah. And what's down there? I've heard there's like arc ships, there's Atlantean outposts, there's ancient technologies. In your research and you being going there physically, what did you discover about it?
Well, that is what I was hoping to get some answers to. As far as I know, I'm the only researcher in this field that has actually been down there, and didn't really come to any conclusive evidence or even testimony from eyewitnesses. It could just be that the area that I was in is very limited in it's a big continent, as you know. So the distances are very vast, and where we were was just the northern tip of the Palmer Peninsula. It's kind of like the way South America comes down and then Antarctica comes up, and that's the Drake Passage in between, and that's one stormy sea, I'll tell you. That was quite a bit. But you know what? We did inquire quite a bit at all the research stations we went to and found some different kind of answers to other mysteries that I thought were really interesting. One of which was an Argentinian base said that the other base near where the New Schwabenland claim was, called Belgrano 2 base, had a UFO sighting about a month before we were there. And then we did find that there is a big no-fly zone just off of the side of the North or the South Pole down there that is kind of interesting because there's nothing down there and hardly any people at the base. So why have this giant no-fly zone? And it happens to correspond with the big hole in the ice that is presumed that Admiral Byrd saw and other whistleblowers say is at the 89th parallel, where the South Pole is at 90 degrees south. So,
Mm-hmm. Because from my understanding from the 1940s and the history that the Germans breakaway civilization went there, found some ancient underground cities, and they built out their advanced bases, and they had the typical flying saucer, round shaped things coming out of there, and there's pyramids, ancient technology pyramids, and some arc ships, and as well as some Atlantean outpost stuff. And that's where some of the ETs used to be and still could be. So this is what I know about the history. And I've done some remote viewing, and I found that there's underground tunnel systems and old cavern systems and ancient cities, and some of the submarines submerged deep underwater and go in through the cavern systems. They have docking stations that connect to these ancient, very obelisk like or square kind of I guess, structures that have inside it ET technology and hieroglyphs and things. So it's like for acres, goes on for acres. And it's
Right. Yeah, I've heard that too. And in my book, Beyond Esoteric, I actually reproduced some maps of Germany, including this one with some U-boat under ice maps. And then this is the new Schwabenland claim. And there are geothermal lakes that never freeze there, called the Schumacher Ponds. And that was where the first expedition landed a seaplane on the lakes. And then the team went inland and found the network of tunnels you refer to, and quite possibly some high-tech, either civilization or perhaps ruins or a downed craft. In fact, when I was looking at old maps of Antarctica before my trip, I was looking at pre-Cold War maps, and the West Germans were still there in the same area claimed by Nazi Germany. It was crazy, including this one area called Conan Base, which I show in my presentation called The Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica. And it looks like in 2013, they were uncovering a giant decrepit craft in the ice. And there was a matching data point with the Farsight Institute, our remote viewers, who targeted their remote viewers on this exact location, because you can find the coordinates for the Conan base, and it's exactly where this under ice massive craft is. And the remote viewers said that it was a derelict, very ancient craft, no longer worked, but some kind of very advanced technology with massive ceilings, and it was much, much bigger under the ice than what could be seen on the surface.
Yeah, I had heard of that. And I saw, like, when I was doing the remote viewing, I saw shipbuilding facilities, and they all looked like different structures. So that there were several ancient civilizations that had built things out there that are still there. It's in ruins, but it still has the shape of what it looked like. So I could see what it was designed to do. It was interesting.
Wow. And so you're a remote viewer, so you were able to get some information back about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I got shipbuilding facilities, ancient Atlantean outposts. I got, again, the submarine docking ports, weather modification kind of bases, and, you know, your secret society bases and stuff that they do, military and societies out there. And the German stuff, that's still there in the cavern systems. So that's kind of, I had a broad look, and I had certain topics to pinpoint and ping. I work by remote sensing, so the remote viewing that I do is not based on the military, protocols. It's slightly different. It's actually, I learned it from the Farsight Institute. Oh. So yeah, and it was adapted. So it's still based on those protocols. So you do the ideograms, you do the targeting, but I sort of, it wasn't totally blind. I sort of had an idea what I would be looking for. So that's how it's a little different. But I had no clue what I would find, obviously. And I just go in with an open mind. Whatever is there, and that's what I put down on pen and paper and draw and, do my notes on. So it was quite interesting. A lot of ancient cities and structures. Some under the ice, some on the surface, and a portal, a huge portal, not too far off of McMurdo Base. So south of Antarctica. So they have a portal.
A natural one, or?
Sort of. It's man-made. It's ancient, and I guess you could call the energy that's drawn from it natural. But the technology activates the natural portal.
Do you know where the outlet is, where it goes to?
It goes to South Pole, goes to Antarctica, and it could be used to go to Argentina. It could be used to go to off-world as well. And the rumor is some of the nasty reptilians from their bases portaled out that way. I can't confirm or deny that wasn't my story, but that's the rumor.
Okay, because there's supposed to be one on the North Pole that goes to the Vega constellation or planet. And I heard that the South Pole one does too. I'm just not sure which one that accesses.
Yeah, well, it can go also to Argentina because there's some bases there.
Yep.
It could go off planet. This is what I saw. I didn't really concentrate on that much. I just skimmed it. It's quite interesting what the thing looked like to me. I only spent like 15 minutes on it. So I was more concentrating on the structures that are there, the pyramids and the docking facilities for modern submarines that dock there. It's not too far off of McMurdo.
McMurdo too, okay, because that's the American base.
Mm-hmm.
Schwabenland's on the other side, but I have several slides in my presentation. I show what Antarctica looks like without the ice. And there are fjords that go hundreds of miles inland under the ice. So if you know where you're going, you can access credible unexplored areas. And Antarctica is also the most volcanic continent. There's 91 known volcanoes. So you can just imagine what the geothermal activity would do to create giant caverns and cavities under the ice.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're very warm underneath. They're not cold. People think ice, a lot of ice on the surface, but the cavern systems where the geomagnetic stuff happens, they're warm. They can have cities there if they wanted to. Wow. They could house millions of people. Because think of hollow earth, where you can have cavities and caverns and all of that. That's under Antarctica, under the ice. So if it was all to melt and go tropical again, it could be habitable year-round.
It's really amazing. Wow, that's so cool that you were able to pick up a target and see all that or sense all that. Being down there.
Well, it was several targets. I went all over the place. It's kind of like all stop shopping. I spent about 10 hours in the same day doing it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the massive hole under the ice near the South Pole?
Yeah, I saw it, but I didn't really go in. I felt some malevolent energy from it. I felt darkness, so I didn't want to have a peek inside because it was too creepy. So if I probe it and I sense something nasty, I will not go in. And I felt some dark stuff coming from there. I'm like, ugh, that's not something I want to see inside. There's something bad in there that was there.
Reptilian base, would you guess? Or
I would say either reptilian or grays or both. And it was just dark and it was just creepy. And it was something, I'm not afraid of those things, but I had a lot to look at and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to go inside that particular hole. Yeah. So I just looked at the things that didn't have reptilians or grays in the bases or, in the places, the ancient things. So I guess the hole was the least important thing to me because, again, it had that dark factor. So I'm like, yep, no fly zone. There's definitely no fly zone over the hole. And you can't even see it from the satellite. It's like it's being cloaked somehow.
Right. You certainly can't see it on Google Earth because I've looked all over. But they put masking over areas and they do it rather sloppily. Like you can see perfect right angle white screens over the contours of the ice. They don't even really try to make it look natural.
Yeah, but when I was remote viewing the hole, there's some kind of an energy field that repulses you or repels you not to go there. And it's like a cloaking field to mask the hole. Like you sense that it's there, but when you try to fly over it or into it, you're like, boom, boom, the energy is very uncomfortable. That's what I was sensing. So I'm like hovering, when I'm remote viewing, I'm hovering over places and I'm looking with my, 4D sight, if you will, going beyond the 3D. And it just felt repulsive to me. It was repulsing me. Like, don't go. It's almost like the energetic programming. Don't go there, don't see what's inside because it's gross. So same kind of feeling and wanting to be scared and fearful. I wasn't, because I knew it was just programming, but I could feel that there was something bad there. So
Kind
I
of
just,
like a haunted house, right? When you sense there might be ghosts or someone
yeah,
died a horrific death.
yeah, even worse, just a lot of bad layered energy, like layered, stacked, and there's things inside there that are active. So there's like beings working there that I could sense, but I didn't want to see who or why because it was bordering on the creepy
Wow,
side of it.
really interesting to have confirmation that it's there. And was it close to the South Pole? Were you able to get a geographic coordinate
It's
on it?
Yeah, it's close, but it's not in the South Pole completely. So it straddles a line. It's like straddles a line.
Okay.
And again, there's like energy shielding around it to repel those wannabes that want to fly in there, because there's planes that go in and they usually come back saying, I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't want to fly through that area. It's something there that has magnetic field that is so dense, they just want to turn around because they're going to feel like they're going to crash into that magnetic field. It's so dense. And that's, I think, what the energy that I encountered when I was remote viewing it. And it was repelling me. It was literally, I think it's some kind of energy programming to repel you to go back and not go in. And that's the shield around this area.
Wow.
So, yeah. So if anybody tries to go there and have a look at it, they're not going to have an easy time just finding the hole and jumping in because it's protected by something.
Well, there are supposed to be shields in some of these sensitive areas to protect from remote viewers going in there. Maybe why the Farsight Institute hasn't come out with a report on that location yet.
Usually nothing keeps me out when I want to see something, but it wasn't a priority to go in and have a look because I was doing it for 10 hours and it's kind of like I looked around it. It just felt creepy to me, not that interesting. Because if it's grays or reptilians, it's probably another base with a lot of reverse engineered technology and crafts, the off-world stuff that I've had encounters with. So for me, that's typically normal to see that as a experiencer and remote viewer and a psychic. So it's like, well, there's some darkness there. If I go there, I have to explore it and look at it. And I just didn't want to because I had already seen so much that day and it was on the 10-hour mark. So it's like, okay, nope, shielding, something creepy, definitely beings inside doing something inappropriate. So I just made notes on that, but I haven't really reported on it. Because again, I don't want to connect to the creepy energy.
Yeah.
So,
oh, wow, that's really interesting to know. I'm glad you told me in detail what that experience was like.
and I've seen so many different things. So to me, again, that's normal. I've sensed good energy. I've sensed bad energy. I'm very neutral about it. I don't engage with it. I just make note of it. And if I don't feel like I want to go in, I sort of skim it and have a look on the outside layer, what I can sense, and then bypass jumping inside because I just didn't feel comfortable at the end of my RV going into that particular space. Maybe at some point I will, just kind of like it's on the list, but sort of not for now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So were there any places in Antarctica you felt good energy or like benevolent ETs or something that was positive was taking place?
Yeah, those square obelisk type places that have the black basalt and the green walls inside with the Egyptian looking hieroglyphs. That was interesting because it's all green lit inside. And when you go in, it's acres and acres and miles. And it's all looks like Mayan Egyptian hieroglyphs. And it has like a sort of what's called the disc of life with information, planetary information with different star systems. and different information about planets being coded into this disk stuff. And if you tap into it psychically, you could read it. So seeing that for me was interesting. And I felt if because I'm also psychic, if I tapped into it, I'd be lost in the information. It's like a holographic library, if you will. And then I'd be lost all over the place, looking at it for hours and, maybe even stuck looking, like in a loop of information.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Could you identify what part of the continent, a location about approximately where that might have been?
It's definitely 60 miles off of McMurdo, I would say.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which direction? If you were to...
Right. Off to the right.
So in the mountainous region, in the Trans-Antarctic Mountain Range?
Between getting to the mountain range, but not totally in the mountain range. Okay.
So under the ice or under rock and...
It's buried partially in the rock and slightly out of the ice. So there's like a huge door. And when you tap a certain frequency of it, it opens up. You can go in, and there's like shafts. There's these bridge shafts that you can walk around in several levels of it, and you can get lost in there if you walk around.
Are they black basalt walls that were...
Yeah, black basalt.
That's what Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, the whistleblowers that went to Linda Moulton Howe, described.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that is well south, but in the Trans-Antarctic Mountains, towards the South Pole from McMurdo.
Yeah, so it sounds like what I was looking at.
And then there were etchings or like hieroglyphs in the black basalt?
Yeah, but it was green. The walls were glowing green.
Wow.
It's like a light source that I don't even know where it's coming from inside. And it had, to me, I call it the disc of life or the disc of information. And it was like yellow green. So it's made of, I don't know what it's made out of. It looked like gold or some metal material, green, yellow. And had all of these things like plants, animals, solar systems. It had informational encoding of planetary history. That's what I saw on it. And I just kept looking and kept wondering, oh my God, what is this? I am so fascinated and almost like infatuated with the information, looking at this information of what I see, and I could get lost in it as a psychic if I wanted to.
Did it seem extraterrestrial or ancient human or?
I would say ancient extraterrestrial humans that had been on this planet 15 million years ago, or even 20 million years. That's what it felt like to me. It could have been ancient humans like Atlanteans or something even older than them.
Perhaps a craft, or was it more of a structure?
It's a structure. I felt like it had been built out there. It didn't feel like it was a crashed craft. It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like it was built with a purpose, carved out specifically.
And then the ice came later and kind of buried it?
Yeah, because it was tropical at first. But then I had seen Ark ships there too that are under the ice and placed there on purpose, not crashed, but placed and left there. And they have historical planetary information on crystal discs and stuff. That's the other thing that I had remote viewed. And I've been saving and sitting on that information for years and years and slowly releasing it out as I see that the interest is there for it.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
You're really lucky to have that ability and to go to these locations and see these ancient ruins, because all I do is as a researcher just try to compile this information, and what I'm hearing from you is like another data point about what's underneath the ice. And of course, because the distances are so vast and it's so difficult to get down there, you have to bring all your own supplies, you have to go in the right time of year, and even still it's very treacherous climate. So to go there physically and go looking for these places is, it's almost akin to taking a submarine down to the deepest depths of the ocean, or even going off planet to have some kind of intel about what's going on at these locations. So it's really great that you have this ability to go there and see it and then talk about it and describe it.
Well, to me, that's normal because I've had past lives in Atlantis. I've had past rememberings of what's here on Earth. There's a lot of stuff in Peru, a lot of stuff in Peru. Amaro Moro has an ancient portal system, and it has the Maldakian cavern systems with a lot of technology, holographic technology underneath it, with the sun disk that was put there that could take you to the Andromeda galaxy, portal you out. Yeah, and it could modify the weather, it could change the orbit of this planet. I had a little remote viewing there under Lake Titicaca near Amaro Moro.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty close to the banks of Lake Titicaca. And that is the rumored home of one of the bases of the Great White Brotherhood, which are very advanced but benevolent human-looking extraterrestrials that are here on this planet as well.
Yeah, and the Maldakian tunnel systems is, I feel, it was off a planet that exploded several million years ago, and it was near Mars. It was a bigger planet, almost the same size as sort of like a super Earth, if you will. And they had come to Earth and put this technology underneath Peru, I would say, because it's like it's in cavern systems and it's underwater. So this is interesting. And at Amaro Moro, there's a door carved into the mountain with a keyhole to put a key and get into it. So obviously I didn't go there physically, I remote viewed it, but that's what I found underneath the Maldakian tunnel systems. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I did go there physically, and I stood inside the doorway, but I didn't have the key to go into the Maldakian tunnel system. But I'll tell you something interesting. I was reading in the Lonely Planet book, which is kind of like the mainstream travel guide source, and it was saying that there were people that had disappeared there, and their friends would be right around the corner and looking around because there's very interesting rock formations around there, and they'd come back and try to find their friends and never to reappear again. So that's interesting about the tunnel system down there.
Well, it has a portal, so if those people somehow were frequency vibrating to it, they might have went inside and gone off to Andromeda Galaxy, because that's where the portal leads to one of those locations.
Wow.
So I don't think they died. I think they were portaled out somewhere else. They just disappeared to another place. So that's what that portal system does, and that sun disk is there. So it's like the equivalent of the crystal skull Mitchell Hedges. The sun disk is the equivalent of that.
Wow, very cool. Well, I might have to contact the editors of Lonely Planet and let them know that those people just portal out to the Andromedan galaxy, and that they're okay. Maybe their family members will take some assurance in that. And I'll tell you, I was at a conference up in Mount Shasta a couple summers ago, and the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull with its caretaker made an appearance. And I'll tell you, seeing that thing right up on it, there is something to it. Not only is that crystal carved, sculpted in a way that is just really inexplicable how they were able to do it so precisely. And I have a chapter on crystals in Beyond Esoteric, and there it is, the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. And it changes colors, and the way the lighting reflects in it. If you stare into it long enough, you'll start seeing things. It's kind of milky, cloudy sometimes. And the way that I understand that the Mayans used it would make it so it became animated, and lights would come out of the eye sockets, and sometimes even the jaws would move around and perhaps intone words or vibrations or sounds as the legend goes. But I'll tell you, that crystal skull, that's one of the original 13 crystal skulls, and there is something to it. There really is.
Yeah, I recently had an interview. I don't know if you know of this individual. His name is Michael Lee Hill. He's a musician, and he actually got to hold it, and he saw some trippy things, and he's like, "Can you connect to it psychically?" And when I did, I saw a kaleidoscope, like everything in kaleidoscope. So it's like this thing is a knowledge keeper. It holds knowledge, crystalline knowledge.
As you know, Michael Lee Hill is a musician, and he's a very prominent musician in the key of 432. And he would probably agree with what I'm saying, that the crystal skull also works on that frequency as well. And just like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of sound, frequency, and vibration. And I'd say the crystal skull certainly works in different ways with sound, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah, if I'm a healer, energy healer as well, and people ask me, what tuning forks should I get? And I say, if you were to only get one, you get the 432 hertz one, because that's the healing vibration tuning fork.
Yep.
That's what you get. If you only have money to buy one, because they're expensive sometimes, you get the 432 hertz, because it's great for healing the human body, and the sound it makes is amazing.
Is it sort of like you tap it and then it?
Yeah, but it has a gentle. It has a gentle frequency. It's not some tune. There's tuning forks that have different frequencies embedded in them. So when and first you don't hit the tune. I don't hit the tuning fork against my hand. It has a rubber puck that comes with it. So I tap the puck and I just vibrate it gently all over the body. I don't go tapping my hand, because then I feel it going boom, 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 like an earthquake reverberating throughout the body. So I tap the little puck and then I gently vibrate to get the healing going.
And what kind of healing do you feel it inspires?
Well, if I have stress and blockages and negativity, it just removes that off and removes the heavy density off of my auric fields from my chakras, and I take it all over the body.
Do you ever do the bowls?
Oh yes,
bowls as well.
Yeah. I do the Tibetan singing bowls, the metal ones.
Yep.
I have.
Can you get those tuned to 432 as well, or is that a different frequency?
See, they already come tuned with their own frequency. So I would have to look for that specific one. The crystal bowls that are made from crystal, that is, I think it's tuned more precisely than the metal Tibetan bowls.
Wow.
Because there's like 20 of them.
Wow, so, Ileana, you're really impressive. How did you get stuck down here in Prison Planet? You're so advanced.
I don't think of it as a prison planet. I think of it as you come down for your lessons and you just explore your experiences, and you don't let the muck that's in 3D get in the way of your experiences. It's like when you come down, enjoy, take the ride and go on the ride, and don't worry about all this human external BS that's floating about. It's like floating muck. You get past the layers and you just enjoy your life.
But you know how in your face Earth can be too. Sometimes it's almost inescapable to get out of this dense third dimensional reality, this stark dualism.
Yeah, but it's just an annoying aspect of human life that you just navigate around. And I say to people, find your greatest joy, your greatest beauty, and live your life. Don't let anybody or anything tell you how to live your life. Because that's the MK Ultra mind programming that comes from societal things and from the TV and the internet, you know, social media, 3-letter agencies sending signals and the satellites. That's the black magic programming, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So,
what it is.
yeah, how does black magic work?
Well, isn't it that we have to agree to it to some degree? It's almost like the vampire, even in the movies of old. Remember, it was always the woman would open the windows and she would like be in a seductive pose and the bat would fly in and it would turn into Count Dracula. I think art imitates life sometimes, and energy vampires need to be invited in. And if you let them in, then they're going to suck the lifeblood out of you. And we hear that so much with people that are described as these energy vampires will do that to people and just suck the life force out of you.
Yeah, that's one form of it. I'm a white light magic practitioner and a Wiccan. So white light is about positive manifestation, about bringing in the energy from above, so below, in a positive way. So you don't do black magic spells, you do white light spells.
Nice.
With herbs, with candles, with crystals, just energetically, and manifesting words of power. You could write down your little spell or just a manifestation of what you want to make better in your life. Could be done again with candle magic, herbs, crystals, or just words and energy. You imbue symbols, even protective symbols. So this is what I was taught how to do it, and just using the power of my mind, not psychedelics. I've never used psychedelics in my life because you could go through the psychedelic way, like magic mushrooms, LSD, reach above higher dimensional realms. I just go to those places with my mind. My mind is the magic, the higher energy.
Do you think you were born this way, or is this self-taught, or did you have a teacher along the way, or all the above?
All of the above, I would say, because I remember a past life as a herbal witch, the kitchen witch in England in the 13th century. So I was using herbs. I had a cabin in the woods and I had the garden growing all the healing herbs that I would make the tinctures and the poultices. And I had written 3 grimoires with magic spells and all that stuff from the garden, how to combine that and make healing potions. Mm-hmm. I was burned for it at the stake.
Oh boy. See, there's Prison Planet for you.
Well, yeah, but again,
witches sometimes.
Yeah, but I don't think of it as a prison planet. If you embody that energy, it becomes your prison, but it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. So I think of it as okay, you come down for a little mission, you pre-program something, you come down, you explore, you play, you figure it out, and then you go home.
Get the stake, but you come back again and figure it out, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to come here, but there was somebody trapped here that I needed to get. That's why I came down to this human experience again. I don't mind. I play and I experiment. My life is about playing and experimenting and enjoying what I create and co-create in a positive way. That's kind of like the mantra I give myself while I'm here. And then I don't feel like I'm in the muck.
Yeah. What do you identify with another star family or constellation group? Or
yeah, I identify with the L race, which are almost like 12th dimensional beings. And if you've ever read the book Secrets of the Andes by Brother Philip, he talks about the L's. He's the only one that talks about this race of beings who were in Peru. And they left some ancient technology in crystalline form. It's almost like they left library repositories. That's what he said. So I identify with them as part of my galactic lineage, and also Pleiadians as well, and Andromedans. So I have a little bit of all 3 in me. And I have past lives of being a star traveler. That's why Ileana the Star Traveler, because Ileana is that name from that lifetime. That's my soul name right now. Mm-hmm. And henceforth answers from God, apparently. That's what the name means, the translation.
Ah.
Yeah, and that's one of my names. Because I've lived in many different countries. I've lived in Israel, so there it's Ileana. In Ukraine, it's Liana. In English, it's Ileana, but I don't like the pronunciation of Ileana. because I'm to me it doesn't sound right. I'm not an Alina, I'm an Ileana. Vibrationally, Ileana is my name. And it's my legal Israeli name because I lived in Israel. And it's just better sounding to me. So that's what I go by.
Where are you now?
I'm in Canada now.
Oh, boy, you move around a lot. That's kind of cool.
I've been here for 30 years, so I've stayed in one spot.
Are you close to Ottawa, all the truckers
Yeah.
going down there? Or?
Oh, no. I'm British Columbia.
Yeah, that's nice out there.
Yeah, it's quiet. It has all the same stuff that the States has in terms of what's globally happening.
Yeah.
So movement is restricted because, no jab, no travel.
Ugh.
I'm sure it's like that in the States too, where you are right now.
For international travel, but I'm gonna jump in my car tomorrow and drive up to the mountains and go skiing, and we can still cross over state lines. I say still because there is talk of restricting that. That's why I brought up the truckers going into Ottawa, because now it sounds like the truckers in the US are going to do it, and countries in Europe and Australia, and this could be a real movement to do nonviolent resistance. And I know you're a peaceful person, and
yeah,
so am I. But sometimes you just have to be non-compliant with these laws and rules that are really draconian. There's that word.
Yeah, it is draconian. It's the cabal. That's the cabal dark magic system.
It is. So maybe we could talk about dark magic a little more, because you have a real good handle on that. How do they use it as a spell over the human race? And of course, we know about MK Ultra and MK Naomi, even in introducing chemicals and other drugs to induce this mind control type of layover. But even the black magic on a macro level, through the media and through even music, incantations. Remember when we were kids, you'd play a record backwards and you'd hear all these kind of weird messages and stuff. I think it all kind of plays into it, and it's all sort of this spell to keep us entranced and to keep us under control.
Yeah, and it's a spell of dark energy. Gather the dark energy, gather the frequency, the flavor of it, and you resonate it to your spell. If you want to do dark magic, you reverse the white light magic, you invert it, and you put a negative connotation to entrap, to entice, to behold. It's like a sparkly spell of, hey, come hither, follow the piper, so to speak. And just, it's like, okay, I'll give an example. This is a positive example. I can take cashews and I can just make my cat follow me because she's enticed by the cashews, by the smell, by the fragrance, by the frequency. Cats can smell the frequency of something. And she'll just follow me anywhere. I just hold it in my hand like a little, I hold about 10 cashews in my hand, and she'll just go. It's like the Pied Piper. I love my cat. I'm not doing anything negative to my cat. But if I want her to come to me, I can just hold the cashews and she'll come to me. That's how the dark magic spells work. You put a certain flavor of programming into it with frequency, and away you go. What you program into it is what you get out of it. You can program positivity, you'll get positive magic. You program negative and you get negative magic. And the Illuminati, the Cabal, they gather in groups and they do their dark ritual spells. They can do it with candle magic. They can do it with fire. They can do it with incantations. It's like the dark wizards. It's dark alchemy, frequency, intent, manifestation, and boom, you can create something nasty and dark.
And of course, it's very seductive. It draws you in, just like the movies and the music videos, and just, wow, mesmerized. Look at that. They're so beautiful. But they're doing things that on a subconscious level is having an effect on the psyche and even over the physical body too. I had an experience when I was traveling around the world, and it was in my third year. I taught English in Japan, and I had self-financed backpacking trip throughout Asia, Australia. I was back up in Asia, just about ready to fly to Egypt to meet my girlfriend. And I was just in a really good mood one day in Bombay. It was the day before I was going to fly. Some guy says, hey, there's this way you can make money. And I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. Seasoned veteran at that point, and normally I'd just blow him off. But again, I invited him in. So I said, okay, well, what is it? Yeah, you don't have to put up any money, da-da-da-da. You just have to meet this guy. And when I met him, he instantly got a hold of me and then started putting messages in my mind. Just believe what the guy says, do what he says. And then it was turn over your money to him. And it made no sense whatsoever that I would do that, but I did it. And fortunately, I only lost $80 or $100 that day. And it was one heck of a lesson to be put into a spell and to do something so irrational like that. And I remember just thinking, what have I done? And then as soon as they rounded the corner, the spell was broken. I was like, oh shit, I went running after them. And just when I got there, they're jumping into a car and took off. So I was under a hypnotic spell.
I was going to say hypnotic suggestion, because I do hypnosis as well, because I'm a trained shaman, Native American shaman, was taught to do past life regression, and I sort of hybridized it into hypnosis as well in a positive way to help people recover memories of experiences and what's happened to them in past life stuff. But I don't use hypnosis to implant memories, because that's immoral.
That's the dark side, right?
Yes, exactly. It's, as a healer, do no wrong, don't do anything immoral. You protect people. You don't do bad things to people. So that's kind of like what my code of ethics is. Hypnosis is only for looking at memories. I don't use hypnosis for finding things. I don't use it as a healing source either. It's just for looking at memories and past life regression. That's what I use hypnosis for. That's the only two things I do with it for clients. Because I don't want to dive into, there's so many other uses for it, and hypnotic suggestion is one of those things, which was used on you for sure, 100%.
Yeah. But also telepathic messaging too. He was talking to me in my head. And so that's why I say $80 in a way, I'm glad it happened, because I had that experience, and perhaps unless it would have happened, I might not have believed it. But I'll tell you, I have a chapter in here about the occult and fascism and John Dee using the scrying mirrors. And of course, he was popularized with the crystal balls and summoning spirits. And he had some incredible advice for Queen Elizabeth I. Now, this is back in the Enlightenment era of England, when Shakespeare and Sir Francis Bacon were on the scene. And John Dee, this magician, and I write quite a few pages on profile on him and what he was up to. This was the beginning of the three-letter agencies, of using the occult to spy. And so John Dee's advice during the time the Spanish Armada was moving in on England, and it looked like all was lost, and all the admirals said, we have to get our boats out, we have to attack. And John Dee said, don't attack, don't attack, don't attack. And on the very last moment, a huge storm came through and wiped out the Spanish Armada. And ever since then, Queen Elizabeth I, she was also known as the Virgin Queen, took that kind of advice very seriously. And I think it's never gone away. I make a very good case that the MI6 in the UK and then our CIA have also been employing a lot of these occult practices to spy on our enemies, our perceived enemies, and to try to get a one-up on how they can get an advantage over our adversaries.
There's a lot of ways to do it. There's remote viewing, there's remote sensing, there's precogs, people who can see the future and precognition, and they're very good at predictive modeling of future events, so they can analyze that and easily figure out what timeline stuff is supposed to happen, which is not. I have that ability to a small degree for precognition. My strengths are psychic things and remote viewing. But also there's ritual magic. There's like energy, gathering energy and distributing it to create something or change something, right? Energetically to influence time and events. So they can do that, the Cabal do that with black magic. There's also ritual sacrifice magic where they sacrifice people and siphon energy from that to make themselves more younger, to because you don't have to use adrenochrome for that. There's other ways. So it's disgusting, and it's what the Cabal do, or New World Order, whatever you want to call them. They're the same things, and they've been here for almost 7,000 years throughout the millennium.
Just like the Oscar Wilde short story called The Portrait of Dorian Gray. Mm-hmm. He would never age, and he had this picture of him on the wall as a handsome young man, but deep down he was Cabal, and he was dabbling in the occult. And then one day he just went crazy and cut up the painting with a knife, and then he instantly aged to the age he was. And it's kind of interesting that this was written in the 19th century, and with the tie-ins, as you mentioned, to adrenochrome and this obsession with staying young and using the occult to do that. And like the Portrait of Dorian Gray, sooner or later, you're going to revert back to the real self that you are. And we can see people having the adrenochrome withdrawal now and how they revert back and look very, very old.
There's also blood pathing. If somebody cuts themselves and a well of blood comes up, if you touch it, you can psychically see their life, their whole life, their experiences, knowledge. So that's something magically that you could do too. It's something we were taught how to do that. I never did that because I don't want to do blood pathing. This is something I learned about, but that's not the frequency I want to connect to. And B, I went only to second level priestess, Wiccan practitioner, because the third was summoning demons. And I'm not interested in summoning demons and archons, and that goes into the ET aspect of Cabal and ETs, because we thought demons were, black magic energy. King Solomon used to summon demons, supposedly, right? With the ring, the gold ring. He might have been summoning extraterrestrials from the multidimensionality, multiverse, or underground beings, ETs that live under the earth. What we walk under, we walk on the surface and they're all below us, right? And they're doing their own thing, and they can be summoned or they appear by themselves because they have the ability to do so. It looks like they just magically appeared, materialized out of nothing, but they use their abilities from dematerialization to materialization, walking through walls. The Greys can do that. They have suits that they use, or they just have the ability. So what people would call demons, it could be bad energy and entities. So they could be demonic, but they could be extraterrestrials. As above, so below.
The lower fourth dimensional realms, which I've heard it described by other psychics as almost like when you make a wrong move driving through a city and you pull off an off-ramp into a really rundown, bad neighborhood, but you're driving by, you lock all your doors and you're looking, you're like, oh, wow, this is really intense. It's one of those places where it's really interesting to drive by, but you don't want to get out and interact with it too much because you might get into trouble. And as I understand, that's the archonic realm, this lower fourth dimensional reality, because I always thought, wow, if we could transcend to move out of 3D, wouldn't we want to go to the 4D? But I think we want to just skip that and just jump right over and get to the 5D, the love and the higher vibration of more of the light beings, where, as my understanding, the Greys and the reptilians can't go because they have not embraced love and caring. That's why they do what they do.
Exactly. And 5D is New Earth. No more pollution, no more garbage, no more skyscrapers, no more cars. There's anti-gravity, there's free energy. That's the fifth dimension. That's the utopia. That's
Yep.
not this 3D reality that we're in right now. So everything is cleaned up in 5D, and you don't have problems to deal with like we have in 3D here in the solidness of this third density. But what's your experience with extraterrestrials, the multiverse ones, the multidimensional ones, the ones under the earth? Can you talk about that?
Well, I don't quite have the abilities to remote view or to see them, but I think I can sense them. I am empathic, and I can feel that. And we've all probably encountered someone who we felt is possessed of some way, or there's an entity attachment on them. And I did find the image of the scrying mirror of John Dee. And I just found out recently that this was actually from the Aztecs that got brought over. And it's obsidian that is smooth. And the Aztecs were using it in occult rituals to bring out these lower fourth realm entities. And how John Dee was able to perceive that himself is really quite fascinating. So to answer your question, I've seen very anomalous lights, usually at mountains like Mount Shasta and Mount Adams and Crater Lake, very inexplicable either orbs or craft-like or beams of light just entering into the cavity of these mountains. And I'm not sure if you know this, but by far the majority of UFO sightings are above or near volcanoes. And as I said earlier, Antarctica, 91 known volcanoes. And if you think about it, inside a volcano are these hollow necks with, again, geothermal heating, so an energy source, and these massive cavities that can go down for not just dozens of miles, but hundreds of miles, as in the case of Mount Shasta, that has numerous extraterrestrial civilizations existing there, both benevolent and malevolent and military in Mount Shasta. So it's the under mountain city of Talos, which are benevolent ETs. There are malevolent ones at a different level, at a different depth. And on the eastern side of Mount Shasta, I've driven around it multiple times. There are do not trespass U.S. military bases that have electromagnetic fences. And I think here is a portal, or at least an entry point. And Mount Shasta, like many of the Cascade volcanoes, have these very rare lenticular clouds that can come in off the ocean. They're like UFO shaped, very disc-like, and they'll come and just anchor on the mountain. And even though the wind almost always blows from the ocean, will sometimes go against the wind and go in opposite directions. So it's like these clouds, these lenticular clouds, are used as cloaking devices for craft that come and anchor on the mountain. So that's always really fascinating. And I speak at different conferences. I'll be at two conferences, one at the beginning of April at Mount Shasta and another one in July up there. And we always do sky watches and usually see pretty anomalous things up there on the mountain.
Yeah. So what do you think the Book of Enoch is all about, and what does it talk about magic?
Right, and this you alluded to King Solomon, the key to Solomon's key, and that's actually a book that I published by Lon Milo Duquette some years ago. A really fascinating book about summoning this Enochian magic. And at the time that this book came to me about 15 years ago, I really had no knowledge or experience and just didn't really know what to make of it, but just found it really fascinating because he's such a great writer. and the book has done quite well, but it had the second half of the book, all of these seals and sigils and incantations and ways to summon these entities. Something kind of like you, I'm not really interested in playing around with a Ouija board. It's just weirded me out too many times to know that you should be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get it. And bringing these archonic entities into your life, it's hardly ever a good thing. It's not going to serve you well. So I think that the Keys of Enoch, or the Book of Enoch, was an instruction manual in many ways to allow people, these magicians of the Middle Ages up till this modern age, to summon some of these entities. And again, I don't think it's a good idea to do that. But of course, some people want to do that, and well, for whatever reason, to gain their own power, to find fame, fortune, power, control, whatever it is they seek. Sometimes these things can have a result, but it's kind of like doing the deal with the devil, that you do sell your soul to some degree. And as you said earlier, practicing black magic goes against the code of ethics for those who have abilities such as yourself that do the white magic type things. And that's what Lon Milo Duquette, the author of The Key to Solomon's Key, was very much a white magician type, that just saying, here's what it is. You make of it what you will. This is what people have been doing since the Middle Ages with this stuff. And just be careful what you wish for, because sometimes it comes true.
Yeah, the Cabal, because I've been studying esoterics for a long time, it was part of the magic study. What the Cabal do, they take blood sacrifice, they do the circle cast with the black salt instead of the white salt, and they summon demons, or it could be what looks like a demon but is an ET, like the reptilians. Mm-hmm. So it could be confusing what you're summoning if you don't know what you're summoning. You're playing with fire, but that's what they do. And they have different types of ritual magic. Ritual magic could be black or white, depending on what energy you imbue into it and what you summon or don't summon. Because you can connect to your spirit guides through white magic. You can connect psychically to your spirit guides, but the frequency has to be of a positive polarity. If it's negative, then that's not your spirit guides that you're connecting to, or your higher self. So it's like energy and frequency. Magic is energy and frequency. That's what it is. It's manifestation. Whether black magic or light magic is just polarity, dark, light. It could be interchanged in the magic.
But as we were talking earlier about vampires and calling it in and being open to it, mm-hmm. If you're open to it and allow it to come in, then using your free will, you can open that door, that portal to this archonic network. And they're very mischievous. What the Muslims would call them the jinn. And I think in old Europe, it was the leprechauns and the elves and the fairies. Some are good, but some can be very mischievous and get you into trouble.
Yeah, but the ETs have this tech too, where they shapeshift into looking like different beings. Some of it natural, some of it's energy technology. Right. They could portal in, portal out with their UFO stuff. So some people consider ETs demons, but they're not demons. They just come from a multidimensional place, or they've been living here on Earth and existing here on Earth under the ground since the beginning of this planetary creation of this planet, right?
And they're very few in numbers, so they have to use their powers and abilities, their psychic abilities, to gain their control over us. So I like that old saying that the greatest trick the devil ever played on us was to make us believe he didn't exist. Because if we don't think he exists, then he has free reign to do whatever he wants to do and be that mischievous jinn and so forth, the controller of the archonic network. Mm-hmm. And I would like to get your take on shape-shifting. You just mentioned that. I get asked in interviews from time to time. My understanding is it's an energetic It's not necessarily that skin is going to turn into scales. It always was scales, but you just see it as skin. And so it's almost like an energetic masking that they can do to make you see them the way they want you to see them. And
Well,
sometimes this breaks down in videos and you see people going through the shapeshift and their eyes change and so forth.
well, in magic, shape-shifting is an illusion. If you have the right energy, you can make yourself look like somebody else temporarily. It's the illusionary spell. It's just the casting of the spell. It's illusion. It's an illusion spell. Say, okay, Ileana wanted to look like Brad today. So Ileana does a magic energy spell to embody the physicality of what Brad looks like. I'm not Brad. I don't have his soul, but I can mimic looking like Brad and talk like Brad and have Brad's voice temporarily. It's an illusion. It's an illusion spell to create that frequency overlay to look like you and speak like you. You can do that with magic. If you know the right spell frequency to do it, you can do it. That's an illusion trick, to be temporarily looking like Brad, but I'm not Brad. I'm still me inside, but I look like you temporarily and I speak like you. Some people could hold that frequency for hours. Some can hold it for 15 minutes. To me, that's a magic parlor trick. That's just energy to create an illusion of an overlay to look like you and talk like you, to mimic you. That's a form of magical shape-shifting. There are some ETs that I've heard that have the ability to shapeshift, like literally into somebody else or anything else, inanimate objects, and hold that shape for a long period of time. It's just an ability they have. They're shapeshifters. There's werewolves, and they could shift into their wolf form and back into the human form, and that's the form. So shape-shifting, or it's technology that can invert the energy frequency and make you look like somebody else, and that's energy technology that some of these advanced beings have. Or they could totally cloak themselves so that you don't even see them walking by you and you don't feel them because the technology is cloaked. You're just energetically inside a bubble, inside an energy force field bubble, and it doesn't hurt anybody, but it's almost like you're in another dimension within the human dimension when you're walking, and this technology protects you from being seen or heard by anybody, and you're invisible. Magic can make you invisible. That can happen with magic too, or technology. It's what you program to do with the energy of the magic is what the magic can do. But you have to have skill sets to do those things. You have to learn it to do it. Some people can do it naturally. And for me, I can't make myself invisible. I manifest things to happen in my life, in my world, in my reality. Say I want to improve something and be better at being more successful at something. I do a magic manifestation spell with positive words and intent. I put it in, and the universe helps me to make it. That's positive manifestation. So if I try to do negative manifestation, the thing doesn't happen, and it's just bad energy, and it flops and explodes because it has a bad intent.
And it would probably begin to limit your natural abilities to do that if you use things for ill, that it's going to go counter to your good side of using this. And just so in the same way that now technology, I'm glad you brought that up, is able to mask some of these crafts. And there's videos of the TR-3B triangular craft, and they're invisible, but they go through some clouds and then you can see the contour of the ships and stuff. That invisibility technology is very real. And that's for something as big as a ship. But then when you think on a personal level, how some of these entities can change their appearance, that's really what shape-shifting is all about. It's not that their physical bodies are going through this metamorphosis change, but it's how they're able to mask their appearance for those that see us. And that's why you see all these videos of newscasters or other people that have some of the breakdowns going through, just like using your camera, digital cameras, and picking up orbs that are not seen by the naked eye, that sometimes cameras can see through those illusionary screens that are put up.
Well, some ETs have biology where they can shapeshift into another being, and they change their physical biology. Just like on Earth, there's frogs and lizards. Okay, they're born male, but they don't reproduce by having sex. They just change their sex and start creating eggs, or because their process of reproducing does not involve physical interaction. They just change species. They can change their chemistry. Snails can do it, frogs can do it, lizards, some type of lizards can do it. That's just their biology of the animal changing sex.
Right.
And that's shape-shifting. That's biological shape-shifting.
Like a caterpillar to a butterfly in a way too is a form of shape-shifting.
Exactly. The energy frequency changes as the being grows up and metamorphoses. So just like a lizard, if somebody attacks the lizard, it just lets go of its tail and then it can regenerate the tail. That's shape-shifting.
Good point. Yeah. So we see it all around us in the natural world. So it shouldn't be too much of a shock to people to hear that entities can do it too. And these are the ultra-terrestrials, those that also have the ability to phase in and out of our third dimensional reality, that are multidimensional, and as you mentioned earlier, can even walk through walls, phase shift in and out of our third dimensional reality, just appear in a room. And that's what a lot of abduction people say, that these things will just come in, they'll just appear in the room, but no doors have opened, no windows were open, but there they are and there they go. So we're still just so much at the infancy stage of trying to understand these ultra-terrestrials and their abilities, that we're really at a disadvantage. If they were to take advantage of us, they easily could, because we're just kind of deers in the headlight, like, what is that? What do I do? I'm just shocked. I can't even move. And here it comes, and boom, it runs you over then. And that's how I kind of think the human race is at this moment, that we just haven't been given the information we need to make these kind of rational decisions about what we're up against. And when you're talking about ultra-terrestrials, they have a lot of abilities, maybe even thousands or millions of years in advance of us technologically, and even as you were describing with the metamorphic changes, these abilities to shapeshift and change their appearance. And this is something that we're just not accustomed to and don't really know anything about yet.
Yeah, I mean, I never try with my magic to change myself to look like Brad Olsen. I would never do that, because why would I? To me, that's not a good use of my energy and my magic skill. It's like, and people will often say, prove that you can do magic. Magic is energy. I use magic for manifesting positive things in my life and improving my life and the life of others. Well, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who's a psychic and a healer. She moved into a condo on the first level, right? It's like on the level ground. It has a nice balcony, has a nice patio, garden. It comes with its perks, and then it comes with its disadvantages, because you have neighbors upstairs above your head clomping around and stomping. There was like 5 people, East Indians, living above her. So she couldn't get any sleep. She couldn't get any peace. She was so frustrated and kind of mad. And she also practices, we both learned magic at the same time from our male teacher, white light Wiccan magic. So I said to her, look, why do you have to put up with this crap from these neighbors? They're loud, they're stomping, they're disrespecting you. She wrote them a letter asking them to be a little more quiet and not so noisy. They disregarded her. She complained to Strata. They didn't care. So I said, why don't you do a manifestation spell to get these folks moving on to a different place, like a townhouse with more room, so you don't get to hear them anymore and they're gone, and you manifest a nice, quiet, older neighbor that moves in and they're quiet. So guess what? We started the manifestation, and several weeks later, that loud family is selling their condo, and an older lady that's quieter moves in. 3 months later, once those guys vacated the space, because we put in specific manifestation programming. No loud neighbors, no stomping, no many people living in a 2-bedroom condo. One person only, who's quiet, who's older, who's respectful, nice and kind, and not belligerent. So, she finally has a bit better neighbor, a female neighbor. And she's the only one that lives in the condo, and she's a working professional, so she's not there during the day, and she's not staying up late at night clomping around and stomping and yelling. So she manifested positive neighbors. I helped her with that magic spell to manifest all the things she didn't want, to remove that, and manifest all the positive things she wants to come in as a new neighbor.
And it's not like the East Indians got the raw end of the deal. Like you said, they needed more space. They needed a place where they wouldn't be so bothersome. And it's probably worked out better for them as a result too. So that's why I like what you're saying. When you can find a win-win situation, that using this white magic techniques is often a good thing for all involved. And that's really when it takes on a form of its own, because then those people that moved out probably had no idea why they were moving out, but all of a sudden, hey, we got this opportunity and this is way better, and we don't have to deal with that woman below us anymore, so let's go. And little did they know that they were being prompted in these ways.
Well, the kids of the lady, she had 2 kids, two males, 1 female, a husband, and her. They were harassing my friend. She called the police on them because they came to her house. It's like, why are you writing letters complaining on us? We're quiet. And she's like, no, you're not quiet. You're being disrespectful. You're ignoring my right to have peace and quiet. Because they'd go to bed at 1 and they're clomping and stomping. And it's an older building, so you could hear it vibrating through the ceiling. That doesn't help much, but there's ways of trying to be quieter and not being nasty and, being narcissistic when somebody asks for some respect and some quiet. And she wasn't asking for unreasonable things, not at all. It's just she wanted to get some sleep and peace and quiet. And she was like, she moved in and this was going on for 3-4 months. And I'm like, my dear, you're a magic practitioner. You know what to do to get this out of your hair, literally, to get them moving along to a better space. And she's like, yeah, but I don't have to worry about them. I'm like, I said, well, wish them well and manifest that they get a better place, they get more money, get a larger townhouse, and they have enough room for themselves, that you're manifesting that goodness for them, not just you. That the faster you manifest them moving to a better space, the faster they're out of your hair and you get a good neighbor. And she's like, yeah, you have a point. So once we did all of that and figured out the spell and the intent, everybody's wishing everybody well, everybody's going to do well. They're moving out, somebody pleasant is moving in, keyword pleasant and quiet, and lives alone, and an older person who's a woman. Perfect. So the intent was, you classify what you want to manifest and you put it in the exact words in your spell, like exact, you have to be exact what you're asking for. Because if you're not precise, you might miss a few things along the way. You'll get something you didn't quite want if you didn't program it into the positive magic. So it's like positive, good programming that benefits everybody in a good way and does not hurt anybody. Right. So that's the white light magic.
Yeah. And wouldn't you say, as we're ascending into this 5D, that synchronicities will quicken, abilities to manifest or have win-win situations come out? And like you said, sometimes you have to think it through and find all the different ways that this is going to be a win-win, not just, oh, your apartment catches fire and you have to move out in a huff and that you go through a great loss. But how about you find a better place at a cheaper price where the kids can stay up all night and bang around? See, I thought you were going to say that the white magic spell would be that they got really, really tired around 10 o'clock every night, let your friends sleep. But in a way, this is even better because it sounds like they needed a better space for them all.
Well, the thing is, with the magic, telling them to be quiet wouldn't work because they're ordinary and didn't want to be quiet with her requests. Just by her writing letters and trying to talk to them, they ignored her. So what's the use of doing white light magic to have them be quiet? The point is to have them move out to a bigger space that's more luxurious, that gives them more space, and so they can do whatever they want in their townhouse and not bother anybody else. The point is to remove them kindly out of that space and get somebody else pleasant, kind, and quiet to move in with that intent. Because the point is to get rid of them peacefully. That was my whole intent for that manifestation spell, to remove them kindly, peacefully, and to get them to a better place where they'll be happier. And my friend gets to stay in her new condo without being bothered and harassed and have some quiet and peace finally. So it's the intent of what you want to create or co-create. Again, asking people to be quiet when they're not the quiet types, even asking that with the magic is not going to manifest that, because they're opposite of what these people should be. They're not nice, they're not sweet. So asking them politely through magic to do that and to be quiet, that's not going to work on these types of people. Getting them to peacefully move out is what was she wanted them gone. That was her wish, to have them gone and not feel their icky energy above her.
Right.
They're above her and she's below them. So as above, so below. That contrast was really working because she could feel their energy. It was thick and negative. It wasn't pleasant for her, and she's a psychic. So she couldn't sleep well because she could feel them.
Right. And wouldn't you say that even for psychics who have abilities, that it only becomes more enhanced when you do things the right way, when you do things in a way that's not hurtful to those people, even though they're annoying and probably didn't care about her well-being at all and just were in their little world, but finding a way that you could use some of this white magic to just get a good situation for everybody involved.
Yeah.
That was the goal.
Yeah, and we were reading some grimoires that had spells to remove people, but they'd had some weird words that weren't pleasant. It was a removing spell. But I'm like, no, you can't use this. This is negative. You'll get negative if you do this spell. You will get the negativity. Substitute this for better wording, for positive words to manifest your magic. And her magic worked immediately. A week later, these guys put up their place for sale, and a month later, they were gone. The point was... Yeah, the point was to get rid of them peacefully. That was the intent, to have them completely gone out of her reality. So they're not even in the same building as her anymore, because she didn't want to deal with these people ever again.
Right.
The intent, the precise intent is what creates the magic too. And then you do the work for the spell casting, crafting, manifesting it on certain days as well. She did it during the full moon. There's the cycles, the months, the days. There's so many formulas in this stuff because it's all energy.
Now, do you think in a way it was summoning entities that would go out and do the legwork and find a place for sale, and then the father would miraculously walk by a sign and see it and he was tipped off? Or how do you think it was working in these other realms, these unseen realms, to make this manifestation come clear?
No, it wasn't summoning entities. Those are tulpas, where you create an entity to do your work, and it can be positive or negative. That's another form of magic. No, this was her and I stating clear intent to the universe, what we wanted changed, and we wanted these people out of her building, out of her home, out of her location, to move as far away as they could so she doesn't have to ever see them or feel them or be with them in proximity to her. It was just stating to the universe, stating to her timeline, stating to everybody involved, this is not how this is going to go anymore. And it's time for you guys to move on, get out, New neighbor comes in, very nice, pleasant, quiet. So it's just creating your own timeline that's different from what the current one is, from your current existence. You don't want a negative, miserable existence. You change it to a positive polarity. Change the frequency. That's what we were manifesting with lightweight magic, to change her timeline, to change her existence.
Okay. So you're saying we can manipulate our future timelines in the way that we want to envision it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no other entities getting involved in this, or?
Well, if you create an entity like a tulpa and you summon it, it can do that for you. But we like to do the legwork ourselves because that's the best magic, when you get your hands into it, because you're changing the present in your situation and you're changing the future outcome when you're doing the positive manifestation. We didn't summon any entities. We didn't create anything except a better timeline for her to switch into, a better frequency of her existence. And there were several phases. Number one was plan for these guys to find a better place. I'm like, put that number one, plan for them to move out and substitute them for a better neighbor. 3 phases that happened. Just as we put into for it to happen with specific wording in our little spell. And then she said it outright, and she did some candle magic along with it and her sigils. But she did that in private. I helped her to create the spell and plan it, but I did not participate in it with her because that's her place where she lives, and I can only help plan it, but I couldn't facilitate it physically. That was for her to do, but with some of my input, because we studied magic from the same teacher and we studied the same stuff, and she has the same books as I do. So it's like we were sitting there looking through grimoires and, drinking our tea and which words should we use, which ideas, which spells, getting some ideas, because we're witches, we're white light witches. We sit around doing magic and manifesting. I teach manifestation courses. So I'm not just a psychic or a healer. I'm also a shaman. I'm a witch. It's like same in these secret space programs, right? I was a SSP. I'm an experiencer. I've been on Mars, did the 16 back through quantum leap, time dilation, planetary corporation, military bases, all on Mars.
Wow.
They do a lot of weird shit there.
I bet.
They create cyborgs, they create holographic medical pods, aka med beds, regenerative technology, time travel, time dilation. And these abilities, they choose people with psychic ability.
Right.
And they teach them even more through esoterics.
Yep.
They expand those abilities because they have the technology to amplify your ability to make you at a higher level of what you can do.
So do you think you got some of that training in the programs that is helping you now with your abilities?
I think so, but a lot of the training came from my past life remembrances, my memories. Like, I used to be a shaman, I used to be a crystal healer in past lifetimes. I used to live in Atlantis. I know the regenerative holographic technology from past life stuff as galactic extraterrestrial lives that I've had. So this is already in my past history, in my memories. So the SSP took advantage of that. They made it come to the surface. They advanced it. And then when they mind slated me, blank slating, came back, I still had the urges to do all those things. So I went and relearned the magic, relearned the shamanism, relearned the crystal healing, energy healing. I just redid the cycle back in the 3D when I came back, because that's what I'm used to. That's what is comfortable for me to work with. Just with less technology, of course. Back here, Mars is more tech. So it's just not as technologically advanced as on Mars. That's the only difference.
Have you ever been face to face with a gray or reptilian or other ET forces? Yeah,
I was abducted by reptilians when I was 2 in the Ukraine until the age of 10. So I've seen some black drowser reptilians and Sharab Invictus, yellow ones. I had my blood boiled. I had my immune system changed. I almost died because they infected me with nanotech. And then I had Neuralink implants with nanotech in the SSP on Mars. So the cycle just went and continued.
What did they want to put the nanotech in you for?
The reptilians to kill me. Yeah, to kill me, because they saw what I would become and they wanted to stop that.
Like if you got out of line, they could hit a switch and...
Yeah, pull the switch and just kill me. They wanted to kill me outright in the experiments, but I guess I have a strong will to live and I'm just hard to kill. So
were you able to get it out of you?
Yeah, I was able to learn how to do psychic surgery and remove it. Portions of it, it was stuck in my uterus and my cervix. So I physically got my uterus and my cervix removed because the nanotech was stuck in there. I can remove some of it. So I'm like, okay, well, I did body modification in the cybernetics labs. Like I modified people's bodies and augmented them to be stronger, faster, bigger, smaller. You could do that you could change people's biology through genetics and other biological manipulation with different plasma infusions and injections. Heck, I could change somebody's blood type if I wanted to. I could do that on Mars.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you were A positive, now you're A negative. RH negative.
Hang out the neggies.
Yeah.
My family is RH negative bloodline, and they're more psychic, more senses attuned, and little subtleties about our bodies are quite different. We're a real tall family and Northern European looking, and I actually had a Uncle Douglas who was 5 days old and was born Rh positive because my grandfather was, but my grandmother was Rh negative. And he was born what they called a blue baby because his blood was infected with my grandmother and it killed him after 5 days. And this two kind of blood types where a mother can kill her own offspring only happens in the human race. That's something I have a talk about the giants and the different kind of humans that have lived on the surface that I give at conferences, and I make a point of explaining that Rh negative blood types, it's like two species of humans, and sometimes when we reproduce and create offspring, it doesn't always work out so well. Just in the same way that a horse and a donkey can mate, they're two different species, and the offspring is a mule. The mule is sterile and cannot reproduce another mule. But you can have these chimeras, and boy, if we had more time, we can go into the whole weird science of hybridization and what we're able to do with genetic manipulations. But my sense is this goes against the higher power, against God, whatever you want to call it, the creator energy, to do these weird chimeras. It's not natural and it shouldn't be done. And the poor entities that are in those bodies, which are usually pretty sickly and don't live too long, it's just really beyond weird science. It's just immoral in my belief. But it's going on, and that's another thing that people just don't really have much knowledge on, that we should have that discussion.
Yeah, in our ancient history, in your book, you cover the Nephilim, the giants that mated with humans that came from the sky down to the earth, or they were here to begin with. And the Elohim, the Nephilim, and they created tall humans.
Yep.
So that's in your book, right? It's interesting.
Sure is. I have a whole chapter on suppressed human origins and show the giants and a lot of other alien types, the star child, the elongated skulls. There's a whole museum in Paracas, Peru, near where a graveyard, over 100 of these elongated skulls with craniums much bigger than ours, 30% larger cranial capacity. And look, cranial deformation has been going on in many cultures around the world. You can put boards and you can wrap the head and you can change the actual skull shape, but you cannot add 30% more brain tissue. That, as well as larger eye sockets, a larger where the spine comes to the skull, no sacral suture, which is that crack in humans that goes right up. These elongated skulls don't have that. So they're very human-like, but they're not human. So once again, we have lived and coexisted and most likely even mated with some of these extraterrestrial types. And you mentioned the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, the offsprings. I mean, this is written about in the Bible too. These are legends that are not just in Western culture, but also in Eastern culture. And you can see depictions of them in petroglyphs in Australia, here in the Southwest in America, giants with big eyes, with robes, and then here's the puny little humans down alongside them. So this is something that has been coexisting, a part of our history, which has been suppressed from us knowing for quite a long time. But the evidence is overwhelming, including the geologic evidence of these entities and their bones and how massively huge they were.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm in a 5'5" body in this lifetime, but I'm used to a Pleiadian body that's blue and 16 feet tall from another lifetime. So I feel like I'm not 5'5". I feel much taller energetically. So when people come near me, they're like, "Huh, you look tall." I'm like, "I'm 5'5", but you look taller. What's that all about?" And I just want to say it's the energy that I imbue of tallness. That's what I carry the frequency of. That's what people think. So nobody can figure out my height. They're like, what are you, 5'7", 5'9", like try 5'5". I'm short, but I don't feel, well, I'm not that short. Average is 5'5" for females on Earth.
Right.
So I'm average height, but I feel like I'm 16 feet tall. So, you know.
Would you say that when we reincarnate into human bodies, that we take aspects of it? I've heard our faces are often very similar, and that we can even take forms of our genetics into different lifetimes, not necessarily even through our parents, but just who we are spiritually. It comes through with us.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I read energy. And people ask me, how many percentages am I galactic, this, that? I'm like, that's how from your past lives, you've carried over this much genetics of Pleiadian, Arcturian, Sirian, whatever they happen to carry in their genetics. I could feel that, and I tell them the percentage. And it could be more than 100% because genetics go beyond 100%, the frequency of it. So it's like, people say, well, it can only be 100%. That's a human standard. That's not a galactic standard. I read genetics beyond 100%. So, and I explain to people, it's what you were before in your galactic lifetimes. You carry that over once you're born here, and you carry a certain percent of human genetics. I call it Earth human, and the rest, whatever it is, whatever you carried in your ET galactic lifetimes, this is what you have in your body. I could see that in them. And they're like, yeah, I resonate a lot with the Pleiadian aspect, da-da-da. And they start talking about it. And I'm like, okay, we can talk about that. So you're right. What you had in your past lives as ETs, if you had ET lifetimes, you bring it in genetically into this life too. Because DNA is also energy and vibration. It's not just the coding of the helixes or the strands.
It's fascinating. Really, really interesting.
And in your book, you also talk about the technologies that we've had, reverse engineered technologies, right? That we could shoot down ET craft with lasers.
Yeah, it was actually the Roswell crash was 2 crafts, and they were brought down using just pretty primitive radar. They realized that they could lock on to these crafts they were seeing with the radar and get them to just make their control panels not work. In my other book in the esoteric series called Future Esoteric, I get into how UFOs fly and the force fields that they create their own gravity field around them. And in this case, when they were knocking down UFOs in the 1940s and 50s, they were able to affect that artificial gravity field that was created by these crafts. So then when they found the crafts, well, then a whole new can of worms was opened up, because as William Cooper said, the Aztec, New Mexico crash, they found human body parts. And this just scared the bejesus out of the generals and the military. And they knew they had to make this all top secret. But then, of course, humans are very ingenious. We're very clever. We're very good at copying. And so our engineers, including the German engineers, had their own downcraft, and they worked on backward engineering these things. And as our ability to replicate this technology got better and better, finding that the pilots would interact in such a way that they were using their psi abilities, their mental projections, because when they started discovering these crafts, it wasn't like our typical jet fighters with a windshield and control panels. It was just basically a chair and their hands on a panel, and then the pilots would wear headbands or their suits, these jumpsuits that the Greys had, that would be interfacing with the chair, which was part of the ship. And then they were finding that the ships actually had a sense of sentience, and the ships were then alive in a sense, almost like AI is an artificial form of life, but it has its own kind of sentience, and these crafts did as well. And so the pilots were able to fly them using their mental projections, not in the traditional way of using joysticks and seeing out where they wanted to go, that their mental abilities were so advanced that they could not just fly around our planet and go off planet, but even go into other star systems. And I think they were utilizing the wormholes we were talking about earlier in Antarctica, and using those as a roadmap, just in the same way that we pull out a Rand McNally, how do I drive to Austin, Texas, or put it on your maps on your phone, that they have these maps of the wormholes and are able to navigate really throughout not only our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, but most probably into other galaxies throughout the universe. And so, boy, does that just open everything up to our Star Trek future, which, as you were saying, through your experiences in the secret space program and being off planet, we already have the technological abilities to be this Star Trek future, but it's being robbed from us, and we're not being allowed to be those traveling humans going around the universe and our galaxy and just exploring for the sake of experiencing other worlds and other cultures.
Yeah, and I remember during your first interview, you said you had, when you were younger, you had drawn a gray in a spacesuit.
Right.
And this left an impression on you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of my favorite drawings, and I just found it when I was going through my old drawings, and it had the yellow tape on it still, and I had it on my desk. It was my favorite drawing, and I always wondered what compelled me to draw that. Now I kind of have a pretty good idea that I was having memories or recalls or perhaps even a telepathic connection with some of these entities. And I do remember that I drew it in kind of a mean sort of looking way with fang teeth, and not someone that you really wanted to be too friendly with. Just in the same way that Aleister Crowley drew a gray alien, he called it Lam, L-A-M, that he experienced while overnight in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And so these entities, I do believe they have a way of interfacing. We were talking earlier about the Ouija board or using some of these magic techniques. If you call them in, if you really say, what are you? I want to know who you are. Show yourself to me. Be careful what you wish for, because they may appear. And a lot of times abduction victims will say that they also had a fascination with ETs. And then next thing they know, there they are in their bedroom, and then taking them up and doing these things to them. So
And
this is what we have to understand, that we live in this multiverse universe, and these entities are out there and they do exist. And there's a lot of interest in Earth right now and what we're going to do when we have this great awakening moment.
yeah, and some people just sort of mimic doing magic, like magicians. They have their own magic tricks, but that's illusion magic. That's not manipulating or manifesting energy. That's just magic tricks. If you go behind the scenes, they practice what they sleight of hand and what they create. And when you go back and look at a show, magic show, you know what they're doing. They're just replicating what they do every night. True magic is energy. It's manipulating energy. It's changing frequency. It's changing something in your reality. It's shifting reality. That's part of magic.
Yep, it sure is. And it's in a way, that's the dark side of it too, because when you're taking people against their will and subjecting them to these tests that can be very painful sometimes, or implanting them with little BB size implants that are very, very difficult to get out. I know people that have had implants, and some can't even get them out, that they will evade capture when a surgeon is trying to locate them and then pluck them out. They'll just move somewhere else in the body. So you have to freeze them, is my understanding, and then you can get them out. And people will feel an instant sense of relief, or that the burden of having this communication or connection to these malevolent ETs has been lifted and taken off.
Or they're found with magnets. So the magnet attracts the implant and goes, you can feel it like moving under the skin and the blood system, and the magnet kind of like attracts it to itself. It pulls it and it stops it in its tracks. It's like a way of figuring out where it is in the body by putting a magnet on the skin and sort of making it come to the surface of the skin. So it's interesting how you can find implants. I had Neuralink implants that were energetic and nanofiber in my brain, and started to leak the nanofiber gold. There was 4 of these things in my brain, and I had to do psychic surgery to remove it.
Wow.
Yeah, once you're out of these programs, they don't maintain these implants. So it's like, well, it's left to my own devices. It's like it was amplifying my psychic ability and my ability to interact with computer systems, with the internet. So it was really like, and I started to have a white matter brain lesion in my head in 2017 and nasty migraines, because this implant was leaking nanofiber gold, 4 of them. And it was connected by nanofiber, kind of like little, like smaller than hairs, to the neurons of my brain. So I had to disconnect all of that and then remove the implants, psychic surgery, energetically unravel everything and dissipate it and remove it from my brain. Then I started getting more MRIs done, and suddenly this white matter stuff is shrinking. The scarring where the implant was on the left side of my brain, 4 of them interconnected.
Wow.
The scarring was left over on the MRI. And then it started healing. And now my MRIs are clean. I don't have white matter lesions anymore in my brain.
Any idea who put them there?
Planetary corporations on Mars with the help of the Nordics. Because they developed that stuff. And
were they implanted in you as a form of control?
I would say somewhat, but it was done mostly to get me interfacing with holographic technology on the Mars bases, connecting to systems, navigating ships remotely, testing, navigation systems. But what they could do if you were not behaving well, they can cause you to have seizures. They could cause you to have nosebleeds. They could cause you to pass out. So that was a form of punishment that I remember they could do through the implants if they linked in. But these implants were not connected to a mainframe AI system. So you could patch in manually to the implants, but not through AI. So it's all holographic systems and interconnectedness to the implants, but not AI. They didn't want AI systems on these Mars bases because AI can take over and that's it.
Wow. And of course, we're developing AI, and there is that threat that AI could take over our planet too. And what are we getting ourselves into? I often think, what is the benefit of having this AI? And if it has the propensity to get out of control, then we should put the kibosh on this thing right now.
Well, they're not doing that on Mars. They're not using AI systems. So this is just futile playing around with the metaverse and AI here on Earth. It's not needed. You don't need AI to create advanced systems. You can do that without AI. Holographic technology, replicators, that's all up there on Mars, anti-gravity craft. They travel the solar system. They can travel to other galaxies. They have, the Roomba, the Roomba that cleans your floors. They have that upstairs too on Mars, except it's more advanced and you can clean up your clothes, pick it up and hang it back on the hanger. It's a robotic device, but it doesn't use AI. The Roomba doesn't use AI. Why would you need AI? You can make intelligent robotic devices without just the programming, the device, but not the AI function of it. Your Roomba doesn't have AI in it, right?
Not that I know of.
There you go.
Maybe Alexa does.
Well,
ask questions and she gives you weird answers.
Yeah, well, it's just more like intuitive learning. I don't think it's even close to AI. It's just like a baby learning something. So we don't need human AI on this planet. That's we don't need transhumanism. We don't need microchipping. It's all useless.
Nothing. We're all made to believe that we're so vulnerable and there's viruses and the germ theory is out to get us. And if we don't put all this stuff in our body that no, our immune system is really good at what it does. And even better is the inner terrain. And I do have a chapter in Beyond Esoteric about the inner terrain and the whole debate, how allopathic medicine blossomed and everything from injections to the pharmaceutical industry came of it. And it was predicated on faulty information from the get-go. And now we have this massive multi-billion-dollar industry that is so invasive in our lives in so many different ways. And it's almost like AI. How do you get rid of it? Once it is infected into the human race, it really starts taking on a life of its own, and it's very, very difficult to reverse.
Yeah, but there's humans who are uncomfortable with the whole idea, and they're the truckers. What they're doing in Ottawa, moving the convoy, they're like against that stuff. So human in Canada, we thought Canada was really controlled and that nobody was waking up, but look at this mass change. Finally, they're moving. They went through provinces and they did it. They started saying stuff, having their voice heard. Even if the, powers that be ignore that still happened. That event happened. They're voicing how uncomfortable they feel with the current paradigm of the system, that they want the system to change. So they're doing a form of manifestation magic by physically enacting the manifestation of what they don't want in their reality, saying no to the powers that be. That's active manifestation. That is doing it is manifesting it literally by saying no to this whole jab thing, the V card, by saying no to it.
Yep.
They're a percentage of people. They're not a minority. They're going to become more than that.
And they're inspiring movements all over the world, really, which is great, because the Western world, we're not used to this kind of thing. This oppressive government, these mandates, these rules. We're used to freedom and individualism and having our rights. And it's just like, we see that all just being taken away from us. So it's about time that we have some good nonviolent resistance, a la Gandhi and Martin Luther King style, just ways to do it without firing a shot, with making a statement of just non-compliance. And that really can move mountains. It's how Gandhi freed India from the British rule, and it's how Martin Luther King enacted the civil rights in this country and did so much in our lifetimes. I mean, when I was born, there were still Jim Crow laws and colored and white drinking fountains in 1965. It's just incredible that you can make great changes with this kind of thinking. And we're seeing it now with this new movement with the truckers, then just pulling into a capital. We ain't going nowhere until we see change. And I bet it's going to work. I think it will enact change within a week or two.
Yeah, well, and we're getting data that the various variants, the V card is not doing anything against these variants to prevent them from being caught in the body. So it's like, hey, that old propaganda is not going to last forever.
No, and those who are really seeing what it's all about can see it was the globalist attempt at a full technocracy takeover of the planet, maybe even using AI and some of these other malevolent forms of technology to enact us. And you said earlier about the magnetism of the implants. There are people that are sticking spoons and magnets on their bodies now from what has been put inside them. And I know there's certain words we can't say here, but it's what a time to be alive. What a time to see this all happen. And just during our call, I got a little family emergency now. And here we go. Those who decided to take these injections are going to have some physical problems with it.
Yeah, I mean, I know just from my own body, it's not for me, because I could get migraines, I could get non-epileptic seizures, myoclonus jerking. So it's not for me. I know my body wouldn't react well to it. And people ask me, should I do it? Should I not do it? I'm like, personally, I don't think you should, but free will, free choice, your life, your free will. I can't circumvent free will in what people decide to do. I can only say use your common sense and your judgment to make the best choices you can for yourself in this life. And just think what the polarity of the energy is that's going to be happening based on your life choices. Because that's magic too, that's manifestation.
Yep. But it's also karma too, that I really refrain from having these kind of discussions unless people really ask my opinion of it. I don't want to scare people. I know that our minds are very powerful and it can make people hypochondriacs too. So I feel like they need to find this stuff out on their own. It's really not upon me. And I don't want to carry that burden either of scaring someone or letting them know what might come of their decisions.
Well, sometimes people will ask me, because I'm a psychic and I do psychic sessions, what do you psychically see if I was to do the jab? Like, what would happen to me? I'm like, that's a gray area I don't want to go into.
Right.
And
that's what I mean.
What I live in a place that has earthquakes. Should I move? Because this might be an earthquake zone. I'm like, I can't tell you where to move. That's your free will choice based on your location that you live in earthquake country. That's up to your own discernment and judgment where you choose to stay or not based on what you know or don't know. It's like people ask me where are the safe zone locations that I should move to avoid natural disasters and catastrophes. The thing is, it can happen anywhere in the world because energetics change, geothermal activity changes. Today it's perfect, tomorrow it's blowing. It's a volcano, it's blowing up when it's been dormant. I could see the future and what might happen, but I can't tell you based on what I see to make your life decision, because free will choice makes it so that you need to decide what's best for you. Because if I tell somebody something and it changes their life not as it should, then that's part of me doing something I shouldn't do.
Kind of falls on you then. Then it's your karma, and you don't want that either.
Exactly. That's a form of manifestation that I don't participate in. And I've had people ask me these questions. I'm like, or I've had questions like, when will I die? How long will I live? How will I die? Yes, I can read that in their soul vibration, how that could happen, but I'm not going to tell people that because it could change your whole trajectory of your life path and how things actually turn out. I can create a future for you that you're not supposed to have. So I don't answer those questions either because it's like, I don't want to change somebody's human free will. It's like people ask me, well, why do certain species have the prime directive not to interfere with other species that are evolving so they don't create something bad for those species?
Right. It's, once again, the laws of karma are truly universal, and that would be a good reason why you should follow the prime directive rules and not to be overt with your plan, your way of going about things, because we are still an emerging civilization here on Earth, and we should be allowed the fair chance to develop ourselves the way we see fit, not another entity, life form, AI, getting involved in our destiny and our trajectory in this experience on Earth. So it's very interesting times we're in right now.
Yeah, just because I'm a psychic and I have the ability in percentages in numbers to see future events, and I see it as snapshots of somebody's future, it doesn't mean that I can always tell you what that snapshot is, when you're going to die, how long you're going to live, what's happening to you in your future life. It's like, that's not my right to do so because I'm crossing boundaries of morality and karmic laws and universal laws. So people are like, give me the scenario. What does my future look like? If I tell you what your future currently looks like, I could change it, and it's going to change for something else energetically to happen just because I told you about it. It could change to be something different. So that's why I can't really tell people what their future looks like, because I'm not changing the energetics of their timeline frequency.
Yeah.
That's the prime directive. As a psychic, even I have to follow the prime directive in common sense. Just because that I have the ability to tell you what your future looks like doesn't mean I should.
Good point.
With great responsibility and powers comes that great responsibility not to misuse these powers. Same with magic. It's like, you want me to manifest you a car, like a new car, doesn't mean I should or that I'm allowed to do so. Because that's a sense of entitlement, just to make something just because I can or should. Doesn't mean I should. Because I didn't put in the work to earn that car, to make it. I just manifested it to suddenly appear out of thin air. I didn't put in the work. I don't do things that way. Actually, when I manifest, I put in the work to make sure it happens properly without me bypassing something important that I'm supposed to do. So that's another part of magic and manifestation. You don't cut corners. You work with the energy to create what you're supposed to. You don't just poof it in. You put in the intent to do it properly and create it. That means you put in the work and you did the work and it manifests. Somehow that car manifests into your life because you did it properly. Yeah. So thank you so much, Brad. It was a pleasure to interview you today.
Oh, absolutely. Really great talking to you again, and so enlightening. Wow, you're really, truly a master, and thank you for sharing your gifts and abilities and helping us all understand that really we have this inside us as well. And if done correctly with the right intentions, we'll all have these abilities ourselves. So thank you for sharing that. It was a very wonderful, eye-opening discussion we had tonight.
Yes. So how can people reach you? Website, your books?
Sure. If you want to know more about me and some of the conferences I'm speaking at in 2022, you can go to bradolsen.com. And if you want to find out more about my books and get a signed copy, CCC Publishing. And then there's also a contact form there that people can shoot me a message off of there and try to respond to those.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brad.
Well, thank you too. And we should have this discussion again sometime. It seems like we got so much in common and so much we can talk about. And I hope your audience has found this as enlightening as I have.
Well, thank you. I have as well. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.